And we're live. I see the green button.
Woohoo! Hi, everybody. Welcome to the third night of final webinar day. My goodness, this time goes by super fast. It's hard to believe that, man, we planned this over like a month ago. Tiffany, this is crazy. So
I know, and to think that tonight's like the last night, part 3. Wow.
We've covered a lot of ground, and so tonight we are going to just continue to give you guys some really great information that is just going to help to enrich your child's life. And because you are such a major part of your child's life, moms, dads, whoever might be watching, your past, who you are, everything you bring to the table has a huge impact on your child, more so than you might even think. So we are going to cover how your past is influencing your child. And so we know that this might be a little bit of a sensitive topic. We are not trying to make anybody feel guilty. Please don't think we're trying to say you've ruined your kids or your past makes you so you can't be a good parent. Absolutely not. We're just wanting to talk about some sneaky ways your past might be influencing your child and their ability to thrive, because we all know that you all love your kids and want the best for them. So if there are little sneaky things that are getting in the way, let's go ahead, let's address them, and be able to hear maybe some tough things, to think of some tough things, and look for ways to find solutions. So let's ahead, and we're going to have Tiffany give us a start. We have 5 different things to cover tonight, and we all love to talk.
We do.
We do. We started, but last reminder of Halo Talk. Please, watching one of these webinars, you need to go back and watch the other 2. Give us a few moments of your time. Ask a couple of questions on those webinars, and boom, if we see you on 3 of those, we will send you a free pint. I will reach out to you to get your mailing address to send it your way.
Yum, yum, yum.
It's so good. So good. I was tempted to eat it for breakfast this morning. But anyway.
Do you want to quickly reintroduce yourself in case people are tuning in for the very first time and tell them about Fly on the Wall counseling?
Yes, that is a good point. I get so excited about jumping in the content. I forget to tell people who I am and why they should listen to anything I have to say. So, my name is Jillian. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I provide online support and coaching for parents who have children with some behavioral struggles. And so whether your child has a diagnosis or they are a just typical kiddo, I help to put things in place in your home to help address those negative behaviors, to decrease them and increase positive behavior, bring back some of that peace into your heart and into your home. And all of this is done online, so it's super convenient for busy parents, and also allows me to do behavior observations in your home so I can see your child in their natural environment. So that is what Fly on the Wall counseling is all about. FlyOnTheWallCounseling.com is my website if you want to head on over and learn a bit more.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany, and be sure to intro yourself too.
I will. So my name is Tiffany Hinton. Hello. And I'm with Mom Certified. Our Facebook page is GF Mom Certified. We deal with anything food and health related in the gluten-free community, but you don't have to be gluten-free to come over and get some support. We have 13 cookbooks that have been published, and then I coach moms on healing autoimmune conditions so that they can get their life back and have a life and a body that they love again, being able to help their children move forward. So looking at ways that food impacts the body, impacts the gut, and impacts the brain. All right. And then I want you guys to know, besides the Halo Top, there's some other freebie stuff that's been up for grabs. You want to look for the past videos for that as well. And then we will have this replay in case you want to share it with a friend of yours where it hits home for you that you think that they may need as well. So, and if you have questions, put them in the comments and we'll get those answered. Okay. So me and Jillian both will be looking at the comments and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. So don't feel like you can't reach out and get something if you need some help. Okay. All right. So where do we want to start?
Go ahead and with the mom's gut.
The mom's gut. All right. So we're going to start with the mom's gut, right? And everybody's like, what does my gut have to do with my kid's behavior? What does my gut have to do with all these ear infections? What does my gut have to do with why are they whining and cranky, right? Or why does my kid have colic? So it is important, right? Our guts contain bacteria, healthy and bad, both. And if you have a child that for whatever reason wasn't born vaginally, then when they were born, if a child is born vaginally, when they go through the birth canal, they actually swallow, digest, kind of disgusting, but a lot of that bacteria, right? And so their start of their intestinal lining and of their stomach is then filled with the mother's microbial cells and with that good bacteria. Now, if for any reason you had a yeast infection, if you gave vaginal birth, your kid could end up with yeast. It's very common. But for the most part, that doesn't happen. But what happens is you end up with a child that gets their intestinal tract full of good bacteria starting out, right? And then if you end up with a kid like a C-section, like I did, my little Liliana was a C-section baby, they don't get any of that bacteria when they're born in their mouth or anywhere else that gets to their gut. And so what you have is a very, almost like, what do I want to call it? Super clean gut. And as soon as anything goes into it, good or bad, it starts thriving, right? So if you've got a kid with no good bacteria to fight off the bad stuff, and all of a sudden they get the bad bacteria first, then you've got somebody that automatically is going to start out and potentially have leaky gut, right? And that's kind of what happened with Lily, and that triggered her celiac disease gene to turn on through epigenetics before she was age 2, triggered a whole bout of IBS and Crohn's disease when she was a year and a half old because she didn't really have any good bacteria in her gut. We weren't giving her a probiotic. I didn't really think that a kid needed a probiotic. Now I do. And so we had a lot of stomach issues, and she was having diarrhea. So if you've got a kid that has had constipation or is having lots of diarrhea or just has poop that's a funny color and they've not eaten blueberries or something that would change the color of their poop, or it's even a lighter shade, then that's something you want to look at is the gut. First of all and foremost, as a mom, is your gut healthy, right? And if you didn't have a vaginal birth, then potentially your child has no good bacteria yet. So you need to get them on a great probiotic like every other day. I know that's kind of like gross, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I would think that, depending on what type of birthing process you went through could make a difference. I never even had thought about that, the difference in the gut that can have. That's super interesting. What would you say are the most common, maybe, intolerances that are passed on from mom to child?
So normally intolerances, okay, so which ones could be passed on? Dairy for one, for sure, because if the mom herself is not producing the lactose enzymes, then it's highly likely that the kid's liver is not going to be activated to produce the lactose enzymes either. So dairy would be a big one. And if you've got a baby with colic, or you've got a kid that still has like acid reflux, or they have like vomiting, even if they're a year and a half old, you might look at the dairy. Dairy contributes to a lot of things, including excess mucus, right? So that's a very common one because you actually have to have enzymes and good gut bacteria to break down dairy. The other intolerances that I see a lot, and it is the community within which I work in, is the gluten, right?
Right.
I mean, I work in that community, so I see that more prevalent than probably a lot of other people. But if the parents have a gluten intolerance or another sibling has a gluten intolerance, whether it's causing rashes on the arms or behavioral things or the gluten's causing neurotoxin issues, then it's highly more likely that the other siblings are having impact, including ADHD or behavior issues or just like headaches. A lot of that can just come from the gluten.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if a parent has a gluten intolerance, is that pretty much a guarantee that their child will too?
Not always, because the child could inherit the DNA from the father, not the mother, or vice versa. So they may not have the intolerance, but about 1 in 30 people in the U.S. do. So if you question it at all, you can't test right now for an intolerance. There is no blood test. There is no allergy panel. You can't go get a prick on your back to see if you have an intolerance to gluten. The only way to really check it is to give it up for 3 weeks, pay attention to the behavior, and then in week 5, give them like 2 slices of white bread at one time, and then pay attention to their behavior for like the next 4 to 6 hours.
Including if they run to the bathroom.
Exactly. Absolutely. And you want to look for the color of the poop, because if the poop is lighter in color, then that's a signal that the liver is not working correctly, or the gallbladder.
That is good to know. So, hey, check your kids' poop.
Most of them yell like, "Hey, I need my butt wipe." So you don't have
true.
Right? Anna is asking about a specific recommendation for probiotic. I do like one brand over some others, but it's all personal preference, right? What you do want to look for in a good probiotic is you want to look for one that has multiple strands, and you want to look for one that's spore-based. Spore-based means that the probiotic will live through the hydrochloric acid of your stomach and actually work in the gut where it's supposed to. If it's not a spore-based probiotic, and there's several on the market that are spore-based now, if it's not spore-based, then 99% of the time it's dead before it ever gets to where it's supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's very good.
Kefir, yogurt, it's great to put on your skin and let the bacteria work there. It's awesome if you've got an infection or diaper rash to get a good kefir or yogurt. But to actually eat or drink kefir and think that it's going to work in your gut, it's not. Science actually shows you that it doesn't make it all the way to where it needs to. It'll work in your esophagus. It'll do some stuff there and start to break down food, but it won't help you with diarrhea or constipation, either one.
That is good to know.
So there is a probiotic company. If anybody's interested, they can message me. That is a European-based company, but they distribute through Oak Brook, Illinois. And it's spore-based, which is cool. And the other thing is that they are capsules that open. So when you comes to kids, you can put it in their oats, you can put it in their milk, you could put it in their juice, and they'd have no idea that they're getting a probiotic because it's tasteless.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Let's see. Oh, Christina asked if it matters if the probiotics are refrigerated or not.
It doesn't make a difference, but if you get one that doesn't require refrigeration, I've actually used them sometimes when I'm making pancakes or muffins or something on a Sunday morning, because that's another way to sneak the probiotic in. I'll put like 2 capsules in, and then everybody in the family gets it. So, but if it does have to be refrigerated, then you do want to make sure that you're not using it in anything heated.
That makes sense. Kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see. I guess I'll jump into emotional regulation, and anxiety kind of goes along with this. So I'm just going to clump those together so that I have 2 and Tiffany has 2, and then we're even. So when it comes to your past, I'm so sorry that my feed is grainy. I tried to move to another area of the house today to see if it would help, but alas. Anyway, so emotional regulation. How in the world does your past with emotional regulation impact your kids? I would care to argue that most of us have grown up with parents who told us things like, we just need to suck it up and deal with it. How many times did we hear things like, I'll give you something to cry about? Or We just need to get over it and move on and put a face on and not worry about it and get over it. And we were told to stop feeling, to not look into and understand our emotions, and to just push them to the side and forget about them. And as much as that may have, gotten us through a time, it means that we know how to properly deal with emotions. And I think the fact that so many people in America today are on antidepressants and on anxiety medications, or if they're not on those medications, a lot of people are struggling with highly depressive thoughts. A lot of people are struggling with feeling constantly overwhelmed, feeling like they have too much on their plate. This means that we're not dealing with those emotions. And when we don't know how to regulate emotions, that completely compromises the way that we interact with other people, including children, who, when they ask something to you like the 100th time, how are you going to respond, right? And, when we don't know how to regulate our own emotions, we can't teach our kids to regulate their own emotions. And so we default to the just suck it up and deal with it. Or, you know what, I know, maybe even acknowledge like, oh, I know it's hard, but you just gotta get over it. That's life. That's what we gotta do. And so we're continuing not to teach kids how to regulate their emotions and figure like, oh, well, the school counselor will help them to do that. Well, the school counselor probably is going to see your child a total of like 3 times when they're at school. And it's probably in a huge classroom setting, and it's not going to pass on crucial skills. But the problem is you don't know what those crucial skills are. You don't know what coping skills are because you weren't taught them and you were discouraged to explore them in your childhood. And so this is something I run into with clients all the time is they say like, how do I tell my child to deal with their anger or their frustration? Or, goodness, I would never think to affirm my child's feelings because I was always just told to stop crying and suck it up. And so this can be strongly influencing your child because they're having to stuff down emotions. And they're not feeling like it's safe to be able to express them. So when you tell your child, suck it up and deal with it, you're essentially letting them know like, hey, I'm not really interested in what you're feeling. And of course, this may not your heart when you say this to them, and this is not your intent. But it's easy for them to think, well, if I'm just supposed to suck it up and deal with it and move on, stop crying, then I'm not supposed to feel I'm not supposed to feel, I'm not supposed to think. These are bad things to be experiencing. I shouldn't feel angry, I shouldn't feel upset, embarrassed, etc. So emotions are bad, and then on top of that, my parents don't really want to hear about them, and so it's not a safe place for me to share those feelings with them. So they're going to mask things from you, and they're going to find somewhere else to express those emotions that feel safe. And today, I'm going to be honest, that's the internet, because it feels super safe. Your child can emotionally vomit on the internet and never hear from that person ever again. They feel super safe going to the internet and expressing themselves because they think that it's ever going to come around back to them. And for some of the kids, it does. They don't realize how it will, but it does. And so, by stuffing emotions and not knowing how to work through them, this could potentially cause some struggles and issues for your child. And so I strongly encourage parents to start to figure out, how to regulate their emotions as well. And, usually this is kind of like step 2 in a lot of the work I do with families. So in the beginning, right, we're trying to just put some things in place to make sure their child can do better. And then we realize that in order to really tweak and perfect things, we really need to start to look at how are we going to regulate the parents' emotions and give them the necessary tools to be able to teach those to their kids, which is a huge game changer in the long run. So, but Like, so that kind of ties into anxiety. So I'll just throw that in here too. So anxiety just tends to be, I touched on anxiety the last couple times, so I'll try not to like belabor this point. In past webinars, anxiety is the number one mood that is passed on from parent to child. And that is because anxiety has to do with the feeling of safety and security. If mom and or dad is not feeling safe and secure, and they're supposed to take care of the child realizes I'm in big trouble because mom and dad, they don't feel safe and secure, so they're supposed to protect me, so there's no way I'm safe and secure. So this is so easily passed on. And there are so many things from your past that are why you worry about certain things over and over again. So maybe your parents had a horrible marriage. So you're constantly worried that you're not being a good enough wife, or you're not doing enough, you're not performing well enough, and that could ruin your relationships or marriage. You might be worried that you don't have enough money because money was a struggle. There are so many different things from your past that fuel your worries, what you tend to be anxious about. And when we are not aware of those and we don't know how to deal with those and cope with those, like I just talked about earlier, that is going to be pervasive in your life, and your kids are going to pick up on it. When you are worried about something, they can see right through that. And, there are oftentimes kids might even come up to you and say, "What's wrong, Mom?" Or, "What's wrong? Why are you sad?" Or what's going on? And typically a lot of the default answers are, "Oh, nothing, everything's okay, I'm going to be fine," right? Because we don't want to worry kids. We don't want to put anxiety on them. They're picking up on it though. You're, again, communicating is, we don't talk about emotions. We don't share what's going on inside. We just suck it up and we deal with it. Whereas it could be an opportunity to say, "You know what? I'm kind of sad about this," or "I really wish that this could be going on in our home," or whatever. And of course, you can make it more age appropriate for your child. You don't want to give them undue anxiety or anything like that, but you absolutely can share with them some reasons why you're sad and what you're doing to help yourself to get through that time. You're having a teaching opportunity to show, like, hey, this is how we work through things. And a lot of parents don't know what coping skills are. You would be surprised. You do. You know what coping skills are. You just don't know that they are called coping skills. It's like some new trendy phrase, right, that the counseling world has picked up in the last, I don't know how many years, but we are using it a lot more often. The schools are using it a lot more often. So you know what coping skills are. We just need to, that's a lot of work I do with clients, identifying exactly that you do to help you get through those things. And a lot of those are internal processing, things that you think, things you tell yourself, are the ways that you get through it. And so sharing those with your child is super important. And then just being aware of those things that make you anxious, make you have anxiety, being able to find out what they are, address them, work through them so that you're not continuing to pass on that trend of anxiety to your child.
Yeah, you made me think of a couple of different things just in my own life, right? So the whole growing up and being told, if you don't have anything good to say, don't talk, right? Or shut your mouth.
Right.
Which a lot of times I don't know, for me, myself, I say stuff sometimes and then I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just sounded like my mother.
Yes.
So it carries down and carries down. And then the other thing that came to mind was I was a child that had a lot of sick issues, had a lot of stomach issues. And I was always told, if you don't feel good, go back to your room.
Sure.
Right? Because I couldn't articulate what was wrong. And so it was just looked at as whining.
Oh, yeah.
And now, it's just.
Yeah. Kids have such a limited verbal capability to express really what's going on. And not even just like toddlers, right? We know toddlers have limited vocabulary, but even a little bit older, they might not be able to have that sophisticated language to be able to tell you what's going on. And so Instead of like, oh, you're whining or, that's annoying, right? Like, stop, trying to find out what's going on there. And, teaching kids emotions are not bad in of themselves. It's what we do with our emotions that can be good or bad. So being angry, you absolutely have a right to be angry about certain things, but it's what we do with that anger that can be good or bad. The anger in and of itself is neutral. But if you are angry and you punch somebody in the face, that's a bad use of your anger. But if you're angry and it gives you motivation to fix something or motivation to be better at something, kill people with kindness, if you will, that's a really great use of anger. And so we don't have to squash emotions. We can look into them, explore them, see where they're rooted, and find ways to cope and get through.
Yeah. So Anna mentioned here, model dealing with emotions in a positive way and being able to explain the process to your kids, right? So that and I think Christina kind of said something similar, so that they can learn to deal with their emotions in a positive way with a better outlet. Do you have suggestions on how to model that behavior?
Yeah, so anytime that you are feeling an emotion, like, let's be honest, how many strong emotions are you feeling throughout the day, ladies? A lot, and that's normal, and that's okay. And so in those moments, being able to share with your child, hey, this is how mom is feeling right now, and this is why, and this is what I do to get through times when I'm sad. And it doesn't even have to be in the moment. Maybe you don't feel like you have the ability to be able to handle that super well and articulate things well because you're something in that moment, but you can come back to it later and talk, even if it's right before bed, to say, well, how was your day? What was a tough time in your day? And you can share with your child a tough time in your day. And how did you deal with that? What did you tell yourself to get through that? If prayer is important to you, what kind of prayer do you pray? What are some things that you do to help calm yourself down? What are some things that, when we are triggered emotionally, the logical center of our brain is not getting as much energy as the emotional center of our brain. And so, what do we do to get back to that place where we can think clearly? What does that process look like for you? And chances are things that work for you or things that work for your spouse, that is probably going to be effective for your child because you guys have the same genetics. So, and plus kids love to hear things from you like this. They love when you're vulnerable with them. And so if you're doing it, they're going to think it's cool and they're going to want to do it too.
So anything from, like yoga to just being like, hey, I need to step outside for a minute. Right. Let's get some sun. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It could just be, what do you do to take a break or, what do you remind yourself of? I like to encourage people to have some key phrases that they go to all the time. We tend to get upset, stressed, frustrated about the same things every day. So if you can have some key phrases that you can remind yourself of, some people like to have Bible verses or little quotes or whatever that help them to relax or, get a bigger perspective or whatever it is that helps them to get in a good place. Those are great things to share with your child. You can even explore some great quotes and things for them to look at. And turn it into an art piece that goes in their room. There are so many ways that you can, help them to embrace that exploration of their emotions and expression of their emotions. Yeah.
It's awesome. Very cool. One of the things that we've started with my children is letting them kind of the phrase, repeating that, because as an adult, you look at some people and you question, are they doing their best? Or you're frustrated with their performance or customer service or whatever, right? And you get frustrated and it causes your own anxiety issues. And then your kids see that and they pick up on that, like, oh, mom's rude here, right? Or mom's always rude at that store. So, and I've noticed with my one daughter, she is very much turning into a perfectionist. And so we've started relaying the phrase, they're doing the best that they can in the moment. It doesn't always mean that the person can't do better next time or they didn't do better the last time. But in this moment, especially with her sisters, this is the best that they've got right now based on where they're at in their day.
Yeah, that's a great point. And nobody's perfect ever. We're all going to have bumps in the road. And yeah, no, that's a great point. They're doing the best that they can in this moment. And, Christina here asked if there are any tips for parents to work through anxiety from past issues, or is that not so much an easy fix or process? So absolutely, people can work through their anxiety from the past. It's becoming aware of what are you anxious about and where is that coming from. And if you are not able to work through it on your own, anxiety can be rooted in things that are semi-traumatic. And trauma is extremely complex. So if there's something that is constantly coming up and you've been struggling with for years, sometimes that just means that you might need somebody else to help walk you through it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I tell people all the time, like a few, months of getting some support is going to give you freedom for years down the road to come. It's worth a short-term investment to work through some things that if you haven't been able to work through them, for 5, 10, however many years, finding help is okay. And it is a process. So I can't say that it's like an easy fix, but it is possible to be addressed and to improve.
Yes.
Everyone's different, and trauma or stressors are different for every person. So, something that might be traumatic to me might not be traumatic to somebody else. For example, I love to give this example. When I was in grad school, I was at NIU, and there was a shooting on campus. And so I was not in the building where the shooting took place. I was at work. My boss called me and told me to get off campus as soon as possible because there was a shooter at large. I was by the hospital. I could hear all the ambulances coming. But for the most part, I could go on campus. I was okay. I was able to go to class. I was able to feel secure on campus. Whereas there were other people who were in my program who lived 45 minutes away from campus, weren't near campus at all when this happened, and yet they were so afraid and cried for and couldn't come to class because they were so traumatized by what had happened. And so, everybody is different. That's not to say like I'm strong or something, not at all. It's just for some reason it didn't impact me in a traumatic way where for somebody else it really did. And so there might be things from your past that are a little more traumatic than you might realize, and that absolutely is something to be addressed and to get some assistance with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
All right. I'm going to check comments really quickly.
Yes. I feel like I'm getting some and not all.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're good on at least the feed that I'm following for comments. So
excellent. All right. You want to take next?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about food in our culture. A couple of different things there, right? So depending on where you grew up or depending on your nationality, food represents holidays, food represents Sunday dinners, food represents, certain things and celebrations you do. And if you've got somebody that's not thriving or they've got a condition where they can't have certain foods, that's a big emotional component, right? So if, for instance, I'm going to use my husband. He'll hate me later, but whatever. He'll get over it. Growing up, his grandma always made him German chocolate cake, right? Always made him a German chocolate cake. He was in college. She would mail him a German chocolate cake. He always got a German chocolate cake. She passed away, and then I started making the German chocolate cake. But then I found out I needed to be gluten-free. And there was like 1 year we didn't have German chocolate cake. And he had that mini grieving process, like kind of mad on his birthday because he didn't have the chocolate cake, but yet still kind of understood it, but was still upset about it. So we figured out a way to make the German chocolate cake gluten-free, right? Well, then he was borderline diabetic a few years ago. And at that same time, I'm like, you can't have German chocolate cake. It's going to not be good for your blood sugar. And again, you have that little thing. But that's just a little example. With kids, if they're constantly eating certain foods, whether it's chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, they expect chocolate cake on their birthday, they expect ice cream sundaes on Sunday nights or Saturday nights, right? Or they always get popcorn at the movie theater, and all of a sudden you've got somebody that's on the spectrum and your doctor says no more gluten, no more casein, right? Those kids are going to grieve food. You may not know it as their mother. You may not realize that part of their frustration is in that they can't eat their favorite food, or that you're trying to substitute a food that doesn't taste the same to them, or you've taken away something to them that meant the world. And it's crazy. 4 or 5, and that's their comfort food. I mean, we've all had comfort food. For most of us, I think, that grew up in the 70s, it was tomato soup and macaroni and cheese sandwiches. But yes. It was Campbell's and cheese sandwiches. I mean, it doesn't matter who you talk to, some sort of Campbell's soup and cheese sandwiches, right? That's where we always go back to. You get in college, you miss home, what'd you go get? A can of Campbell's soup. So for a lot of these kids, they didn't grow up with Campbell's soup, but they grew up with chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese, because that's what we did. It was easy. It was in the freezer department at Target. It was something simple. And now all of a sudden you're like, you can't have chicken nuggets. And for them, that's their staple. So not only are you sending them, potentially to therapy, taking other things out of their diet, you've now taken away their comfort food. And you have to understand as their mom and as their guardian that they're going to grieve that food, and they need to work through that process. You're going to have them mad, and they're going to be mad at you. And I had a child throw food at me because with her Crohn's diagnosis, she can no longer have corn. It is what it is. She loved her corn. She loved her popcorn. She loved her corn chips. She can't have corn anymore with her Crohn's diagnosis because it causes inflammatory issues and a bunch of other stuff to happen. And so the first few days we were like, no more corn. You've got to eat peas. You need to eat sweet potatoes. We need to start eating other vegetables. We know that you like corn, but you can't have it. She actually threw sweet potatoes one time in our dining room, and they smacked the wall and it looked like this big splat. But it was, for a 2.5-year-old, that was her way of throwing a fit, basically, going through that grief process of being angry, saying, I'm not going to eat this. I don't care. It's gross. I don't like it. I mean, she did like it, but at the time she just wanted corn. And then from there they get sad. And you'll have kids that'll cry, and you'll feed them something and they'll just cry. And you're like, you have food. I don't understand. So I want to tell you that as a parent, you don't want to say, this is all you're getting. You're going to have to eat it, because that just makes it worse. It's more like, this is what I made tonight. I understand you may not like it, but this is the food we're having. If you decide later that you don't like this, perhaps we'll get you something different, but I'd like you to at least try it. And I love the idea of saying, how old are you? And then they'll tell you, and then you're like, can you take that many bites, right? It's not asking them to clean their plate. It's asking them to acknowledge that they need to taste a new flavor at that point and start to rebuild that palate. They'll eventually have a new food that they love, but they're probably never going to forget that original comfort food, no matter how old they were. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit about, it is, and adults grieve food just as much.
It's so true. Oh, absolutely. My goodness. Think about all the weight loss shows, right? Where so many of those people it's just an addiction. And, when we think about what are the first foods we feed kids, right? Carbs. Carbs are hardwired into their system. And a lot of these dietary changes can really lower the amount of carbs. So,
but those
are addictive and hard to come off of.
The huge benefits are when you eat a diet that is high in sugar, high in processed foods, right? So high in processed fat, and it's all of those foods that come in a box, from your French fries to your chicken nuggets to your crackers to your chips, all that breakfast cereal, all that stuff that comes in the box. It's so high in sugar and high in carbs, like you were saying, Jillian, that it actually causes magnesium deficiencies in adults and children, and much worse in children. And so with magnesium deficiencies, you end up with kids that can't sleep correctly, or they have tics, or they're getting muscle spasms, or they've got cramping that they can't really explain, but their muscles hurt, right? Or my legs hurt. And then in severe cases, they'll end up with irregular heart rhythms. And it's not just obesity at this point, because it's causing a lot more damage. But there's a simple solution for magnesium deficiency once you fix the diet: Epsom salt. My kids sit in a tub of Epsom salt at least once a week, because the magnesium in the Epsom salt will osmosis right into their body. Their body will absorb the magnesium, and I don't have to necessarily give them a supplement, because kids aren't going to want to take any extra pills. They're just not. So it's a great fix. And a lot of the Epsom salts you get can have lavender in them, so they can help with making children more sleepy in the evening and getting, ready for bed and that restfulness. But yeah, so not only are they going to grieve the food when we start to change it, but they're also, if they're continuing on that regular traditional American diet, because it's easy for the mom, right? It's convenient. You can microwave it. You can stick it in the oven. It's done in 20 minutes. Your child may be magnesium deficient, and it's not going to necessarily show up on a blood test unless you go get a special blood draw.
Not expensive, I'm sure.
Yes.
Right? Oh my goodness, yes.
So it's just one of those things when they're like, oh, we don't know what's causing this stuff. Like, look at their magnesium and look at what you're feeding them, first of all, because our traditional culture anymore is not the best diet for our children to thrive.
Yeah, and I see so many parents, and I've had a lot of parents ask me this question too, like, my kid's not eating anything. What do I do? They're going to starve, right? And all they want is chicken nuggets and this. In fact, I saw a post today, and somebody was like, I'm a health nut, and my kid will only eat chicken nuggets, and I don't know what the other things were, but it was all like carb stuff. And she's like, what do I do? And I'm thinking to myself, well, don't buy chicken nuggets, right? Right. And I didn't say that. I figured I'd probably offend her. Let's be honest. Like, if the chicken nuggets aren't in the house, the chicken nuggets don't go in the kiddo's tummy, right? And there's, like you said, there's going to be revolting. There's going to be many tears and anguish. And, but the thing is, I tell parents this, and the people who choose to follow through on this do see results. But kids won't go hungry.
No,
they're not going to completely starve themselves. They have such a better handle on whether they're full or hungry than we do. My goodness, we just it's like me at a sushi, all you can eat sushi place, and we eat way more than I should, right? So the kids, like, they're full, and like it's done, and they're not going to starve. They'll eat, they'll break. And they'll see that's not so bad. But if the chicken nuggets and Pop-Tarts aren't there, they can't eat it.
Right. And our alternative for that was originally to buy chicken breast and cut it up into like little squares, and then put a little pink salt and olive oil on it, and just put it in a broiler and let them cook that way. And they still had little bites, but there was no coating on them. There was no processed fake chicken inside. And that was, they weren't the same, but it was still, hey, you can pick it up with your hand if you want. You can dip it, but it's chicken still. It's just different chicken. I did see Jessica had a comment, Epsom salt. I will address that quickly. I honestly just get it at Walgreens. It's the Walgreens brand. It's like $6 a bag. I know a lot of people like Dr. Teal's Epsom salt, which you can get at Costco, I think, in a larger bag. And I do know Dr. Teal's actually has the lavender in it. The one I get is just the generic Walgreens brand. So there is no extra. I have to add lavender or something if I want. So, yeah. All right. I don't know if there's any other questions. And then we'll move on to our next topic.
All right. So The last topic is discipline. So, um, again, this always comes up in sessions with parents, because it tends to be that the way we were disciplined as a child is the way that we think we should discipline children today. Everybody has this idea of like, well, I turned out okay, right? Or it's not even something necessarily that like, when let's say that you're going through you're going to have a baby, you go to the hospital for classes, right? They have breastfeeding classes and all these different classes, but they don't necessarily have and this is how you should discipline your child classes, right? We don't necessarily have these formal classes about how to discipline and structure a home. And there's a zillion books out there, and they'll have a million different ideas, some that are conflicting, some that you're like, well, maybe I could try that. But what really ends up happening is what you're used to your parents doing is naturally going to come through in your parenting. And, especially if your parents live close by and they are watching how you interact with your kids, they probably are going to have a few things to share with you about how you're disciplining your kids and, you should be doing this. And so again, you're passive sneaking in that way. But regardless, you know what you know. And I know that sounds super simple and maybe trite, but really you know what you know. And so that's what you're going to default to. And it tends to be when you are disciplining your child that the situation is a little bit more stressful than a normal situation. And so we tend to revert to things we're comfortable, used to, that are normal, to us, that we don't have to think very hard about. So, for example, even when I'm working with parents and they're implementing some new, systems or some new ideas or ways to address behaviors, they often take a little while to figure it out because when they're in that stressful disciplinary moment, they revert back to what they've been used to doing. Not just because that's what they've been doing with their child from day one, but also because that's what they grew up experiencing themselves. And so those are some really difficult things to unroot and to change. And that just takes time. And so you have to unlearn what you know and relearn it completely. And that takes time. And there's a lot of disciplinary techniques that millennials and things aren't super fond of the way that their parents handle things. So and before millennials as well. I will just limit it to millennials, but spanking or corporal punishment, right? So that's not super popular in today's society. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I have clients who do, I have clients who don't. Totally up to you. A lot of people these days don't like the idea of spanking, and that was something that your parents used. And so how do you replace that, right? So we're not including spanking, but what do we do instead? And there's a sense of like, well, I don't really know. I'm just going to try my best. And, when we don't have a foundation to go from, and we're shooting from the hip, we're going to be trying a million different things. There's not going to be anything consistent, and it's not going to be effective for your child. Consistency is key with discipline. And another kind of interesting point that I want to bring up that not a lot of people are talking about, but I find it to be super important and critical in the work I do with parents. A lot of parents nowadays, younger parents, not grow up in a family that pursued some kind of faith-based organization. Or if it did, it was like they just kind of went a few times, or it was just kind of like something to check off the list because it's what we should do, not something that was like, this is our life, these are our values, this is what we're pursuing. And so when a discipline system is based on what mom and dad feel like is right, and instead of these kind of core essential values, there's really nothing for the child to stand on or to understand, and there's nothing for the parents to come back to as a foundation either. And so since a lot of these parents didn't grow up with those values being taught, they're also not using those values to teach their child. And that is having some compounding effects in the way children are treating other people, acting in school, acting at home. And, you know, parents don't understand, like, well, why isn't my kid a good person? But it's because we don't know truly, you know, some of us, I can't say for all of us, but I think a lot of parents today don't really have a firm grasp on what do they think is a good person, or what do they really want their child to know and to value and to be. We don't necessarily slow down to think about those things and how are we imparting them to our kids. So I think that's another really huge part of our past that is strongly impacting children today.
So around those values, do you what do you think of the family sitting down and working with the kids to design like what does a good person look like, and having the kids either draw or write down things that make a good person?
That's a great question, and I can't speak too much to it because that is a huge part of the work I do with families, and so to respect those families and the work that we do together, that's something that I can't just throw out for everybody for free. But you know, absolutely creating some kind of a system, you know, but just writing down values, that you can absolutely do that. You can write them down, but unless you have a system that you are making sure that those things come up, and you are making sure that there's not just, you know, an awareness of it, but that it's woven through everything that you do, the kids are not going to pick up on it. And so this is super important. Absolutely, a great starting point would be to identify what even are those values and what is a good person. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, let me see what other questions might be out here. My phone keeps shutting off in between. I don't see anything on this feed. Let me look at the other one.
I know it's like spinning for some reason this time. Showing up on some and not on others.
Okay, I think we're good. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes or so before we're done. Do you want to talk a little bit about how they can get a hold of you to work with you, Jillian?
Sure, yeah. So you can either reach out to me through my personal Facebook page. I don't mind interacting through my personal Facebook page, or my business page, Fly on the Wall Counseling, as well. Send me a message if you want some more information. I'm going to be leaving a link at the bottom here for a free behavior and mood assessment. I have had 100 submissions of this, and so I have worked through writing up 100 unique, individualized assessment reports to families. My goal is 150, to get through 150 in the next 2 weeks. So totally doable, by the way. 150 more in 2 weeks, totally could do that. But this is a very valuable thing for you to do, for me to look at what's going on with your child, what could be some helpful things to meet their needs and your goals for them. And then if after you receive that assessment, if you want to schedule some time to talk to me for free, I do free consultations. You can absolutely do that. I've had a bunch of people take me up on that after they get their assessment results. It's a really quality time of talking and just exploring and helping you as a parent to figure out what's going on and what do you truly want, and what does your child truly need. So you can definitely schedule one of those. I can put the link for a free consult as well if you just want to jump right into that. But I highly encourage you to do this assessment, and also lets you get a feel for who I am and what my philosophy is, and just give you a glimmer of what it might be like to work alongside me. I think it's super important for people to trust and to like the person that they work with. In traditional mental health care, you show up, you pay somebody a bunch of money, and you might not even like them, and all you did was fill out paperwork. That is a waste of your time and a waste of your money. So I don't do that. I bypass that. I will give you that free assessment, and I will give you a free consultation to see if this is even worth your time and your investment. Because I respect you and want to make sure you're making a wise and informed decision. So you can also check out flyonthewallcounseling.com. You can see some of my testimonials there and just a little bit more specifics about what I do and my experience as a clinician and experience in working with parents and families.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And right. You as well.
So definitely through Facebook, you can go over to GF Mom Certified and shoot me a message, or on my personal page, just shoot me a message. If you're looking for a cookbook because you've got children that need to go gluten-free, dairy-free, or some other, go over to gfmomcertified.com, click on the shop button, and all 13 cookbooks that we have are over there. You can also find them on Amazon, I will tell you that. And then if you're looking for somebody to help you with meal planning and making that transition and making it more of a lifestyle and new habits versus a complicated process that you don't know how to grasp onto, and you know that you need the change but you don't know how, then I as well can offer you a free consult because you were on the live webinar. So we can get on the phone for about 30 minutes, talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and kind of what's got you stuck, and see if we can move you forward. So definitely would love to help you with that. And then I am going to be giving the link again tonight, and I will post it right here when we're done, for the BYOC, the Bring Your Own Cupcake Cookbook. So you can download that for free off our website with a code. So I'll put the link and I'll put the code both right below this video on Facebook. And I would encourage you to go out and get that if you've got kids with food allergies, or even people in your circle that have allergies, so that you can make them feel special every single day and learn to celebrate the joys of every moment.
I love that. Yeah, like when we went gluten-free, we don't expect people to accommodate us. We just expect, like, hey, we're weird, we eat weird, like we don't expect people to know what gluten-free is, right? So, when somebody goes out of their way and make something or bring something that fits our dietary needs, it is such a blessing. So absolutely take Tiffany up on this offer, guys, to get that free resource, because you will seriously make somebody's day. People are so used to not being, like, going to a picnic and not being able to eat anything, or going to a party not being able to eat anything. And picnic season is coming up. Barbecue season.
Yes, it is.
Get that cookbook and bring some cupcakes for those people. They'll love you.
Awesome. All right. I don't see any more questions, but I think we'll both probably monitor the feed a little bit tonight and tomorrow. So if there's anything that pops up. And then, like Jillian said in the beginning, make sure you comment in all 3 videos, and we'll be getting you some Halo Top. Yum.
Woo-hoo. Yep. Send it your way. So they were super excited to support this. I reached out to them, let them know what the purpose was, and they said that, wow, this is so important to be able to support people who are trying to influence families to enrich kids' lives. So love that they're behind that mission and help us out. So if you want in on it, comment below, and I will be reaching out to those who qualify to get your address. Exciting.
All right. And if you just caught night 3 and you want to see night 1 and night 2, you can go back in the feeds. And then I also have, I need to get the second one, but I have the first one on YouTube. But then I will add this one and number 2 to YouTube tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Perfect. And let me know, Tiffany, if there's people commenting on those 2.
Okay. I definitely will. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Oh my goodness, this is a blessing. This is fun. We'll have to schedule something else in the future. And, Tiffany and I we have so many clients that share the same needs. So, being able to team up with somebody who has a passion for the same people but can serve them in a unique way that I can't is so valuable for me to find, because wraparound care is so important. So I'm sure Kurt and I will be in touch, and we will be delivering more excellence to all of you guys. Thank you so much, and feel free to comment, and feel free to share this video with anybody that might find it to be interesting and helpful. We have a heart to help, so join us in that mission, pass it along, and have a great night, and we hope you and your kiddos are thriving.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.